Taxes was taxing. Now taxes is relaxing when you file for free.
I can file for free? TurboTax Free Edition. Roughly 37% of filers qualify. Simple Form 1040 returns only. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free. I can file for free.
Now this is taxes. File for free with TurboTax Free Edition and get your maximum refund. No schedules except for earned income tax credit, child tax credit, and student loan interest. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free.
Hello again, everybody. This is me, Ben Calder, here for the BTPA, the Bowen Therapy Professional Association in the UK. And today we've got a really interesting interview with Helen Dobra, who is the co-founder and education coordinator of the Natural Therapy Institute in Australia. She's a Bowen practitioner, a TRTP therapist who's got a real special interest in vagal and psoas work. She's also a Qigong and mindfulness instructor, and she's the voice and the motivation behind the These Two Hands documentary on Tom Bowen, and also the coordinator for the Bowen Global Summit 2025, which will be happening on the 22nd and 23rd of March, which is going to be an incredible event with a whole host of incredible speakers. And we're going to speak to Helen today about what got her into Bowen, her experiences being a Himalayan ice climber, and the injuries that took her into Bowen, and the support work she does with teens with ADHD and PTSD, and how her trauma work and the work of Anne Schubert contributes in towards that. And of course, we're going to talk about the These Two Hands documentary and the Bowen Global Summit and all of the wonderful value that you would get from taking part in that. So I'm going to be speaking on it. I'm along with a team of incredible speakers, including Dr. Robert Schleipp, John Wilkes, John Shakey, Russell Sturgis, Georgie Ilchev, Ross Emmett, Anne Schubert, Gusta Lacara. We've got some wonderful, wonderful people involved in that. So I hope that you'll listen along, enjoy this interview, and support that Bowen Global Summit. And remember, help us out, hit the subscribe button down there, share this stuff out to your clients and other relevant people, and help keep the BTPA going. Thank you very much. Helen, hi. Good morning from me. I know it's not morning for you over there, but so grateful that you've joined us here for the BTPA interview today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, sure. And, you're going to become a little bit of an international celebrity as we go along in some ways for being one of the guiding lights behind the These Two Hands docufilm on Tom Bowen. And that's been really interesting to have over here. We love having seen that. But before we get into all of that, I'd really like, just for anybody that's not come across you before, anybody that doesn't know your work, give us a bit of a potted history of you, how you got to where you are, how you got into Bowen therapy, and then we'll start talking about the documentary, about the Bowen Global Summit, and about what you're going to be doing in that.
I live in Woolai, which is a little country town on the east coast of New South Wales. I have 3 children, a really busy mum, running a practice in Grafton called Seed of Wellbeing, which is complementary therapy. I integrate Bowen therapy and also somatic trauma release. That's Anne Schubert's work and also the TRTP. So I'm very passionate about chronic pain and mental health, and that's kind of where my work has gone in the last couple of years. My background really is environmental science, and I have a great passion for nature. So I spent a lot of time working in the bush. I've done outdoor education for the past 15 years, ecotourism. Later, I went into Bowen therapy by accident, actually. I was extensively into outdoor education and wilderness programs, and in a past life, an ice climber, and trudging around, the Himalayas and New Zealand and Australia and carrying heavy packs. I was debilitated at one point when I was 25 after having some trauma in the Himalayas. And I was having at that time chiropractic treatment probably twice a week, and it wasn't holding for very long. I then got a job with national parks and was leading a team with dune rehabilitation, which is redeveloping dunes from erosion. And I was just suffering a lot of back pain with, having a group and doing a lot of manual labor and setting up a nursery. And just happened to stumble across Bowen by accident. And I had my first treatment. And after having chiropractic and that time it was like force manipulation, and I only had a small frame. For me, it was just on that day, it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, oh, I've got to study this one day. And then, Bowen therapy was my treatment of choice. And I don't know how many Bowen therapists I've been through around Australia. I mean, when I was traveling, I'd sought them in Kangaroo Island, in Tasmania, all over the place. And and then I actually commenced studying Bowen therapy after having 2 children. And it was really just for my family to be independent as a mum, to be able to treat them. And then it just extended from there. So now I've been practicing for about 16 years, and I've got a little practice in Grafton, and I find myself spending a bit of time there in my clinic.
Brilliant. Well, I had no idea about the whole Himalayan ice climbing history as well, which is, for me, it's kind of exciting because my eldest brother, who's 8 years older than me, he's been a Himalayan guide for many years. And so he was in the army many, many years ago and stationed out in Pokhara, and became fluent in Nepali while he was out there. And then for various reasons came out of the services and just continued to be an indispensable aid on a lot of treks because he could speak Nepali as a white guy. So it was very handy, and he's been out there twice a year for many, many years now. So it's kind of interesting. I've got a lot of love for Nepal, but maybe it doesn't hold it's got a few other memories for you as well there. But it's really interesting, I think, that we can go through quite a bit of manual therapy after we've had some kind of incident like that. And while it'll shift things or give us a bit of a release, it's that difference of things not holding. So it's interesting that for you, Bowen, and I guess to a degree, the TRT, the trauma release work, has been really important in having a full recovery for yourself.
Basically, I'd had back problems from a young age, really, and I never really understood until, to be honest, 10 years ago, as I was researching more into back issues and my own physical conditions that I was having, what I found was that I was wondering, why does my back pain just keep coming back, even though I've had a lot of Bowen, I do yoga, and I started researching actually the psoas from a yoga perspective, and that enabled me to understand deeply the psoas muscle and it's linked to the nervous system and the vagus nerve. I started researching more after I had experienced, I suppose, the buildup of stresses in my life and other things that were happening over the last 10 years, where I got chronic insomnia and also some anxiety, probably over the magnitude of a busy mum and taking on way too much and not having the balance. And I started researching. I was having a lot of Bowen. I started trying Ayurvedic therapy, acupuncture, all sorts of things to try and relieve my insomnia, and nothing was really holding for me. And then I was investigating trauma, and the TRTP came up, and I had counselling, and that didn't really work. And so I decided to study the TRTP, even though, again, it was something out of the box that nobody understood. But I was gravitating towards that because I wanted something that wasn't extending for years and years, uncovering layers and layers of talking therapy. I wanted to really get to the bottom of it and fast. And that's what, when I talked to Judith Richards, she said, look, this turns around really quickly. And so I studied it and then became a therapist, and I had great relief from my symptoms of insomnia and anxiety. And then obviously the next layer was studying Qigong, because I wanted a practice that I was implementing all the time. And the Qigong actually, and the understanding of traditional Chinese medicine philosophy, really resonated with me in relation to, I was very fascinated with Anne Schubert's somatic trauma release work. And in fact, I'd studied with her and Margaret Spicer at the time. It would be about 16 years ago when I first started studying studying because I was so fascinated with the mind-body connection way back then. And it's only really now that all the pieces of the puzzle have been put together where in my practice I integrate the whole thing and have a program where I look at how is the Bowen holding for people in a very short space of time. Is it holding? And then looking at, and I use Anne's approach where we're doing somatic release, and that's how I work with people every day. So I'm really passionate about Anne's work and getting it out more into Bowen and also beyond Bowen, actually. And then looking at, does this person need TRTP? Is it actually holding? And this, I've had turnarounds in, teenagers that are pretty much have been on ADHD medication since they were 10, that now within such a short space of time, I'm talking 6 sessions to 7 sessions where they've completely turned their life around from severe PTSD, ADHD to normalized. And some people that have been in the system of the mental health system for, 15 years and have had so much psychotherapy and have been able to turn around their extreme PTSD symptoms, which I use the DAS score, within a very short space of time. For me, that's just been mind-blowing. And I do believe that Bowen therapy has a real place to play in mental health. And I'm really passionate about, seeing that move forward into the mental health arena.
Beautiful. Oh, well, I absolutely love that, Helen. There's so much just within what you've been saying there. And again, that ability to be able to work with the ADHD type symptoms, the PTSD, I'm kind of, in my opinion around ADHD, I see a lot of it as being nervous system dysregulation that comes from a source, not something that needs to be medicated and suppressed, but something that needs actualizing and moving through in a way that allows that body to regulate in a way that it can't. So it's fantastic to hear that you've been using the TRTP and other trauma work to help with that in combination with the Bowen, which, again, is a remarkable tool for helping with the recovery of trauma on various levels, trauma in various ways, but also really excited by the fact that you incorporate Qigong in that as well. I've talked about it on a number of the interviews that I've done for the BTPA, that I see it as a form of self-treatment. So I also teach Qigong myself, and, I find it an absolutely indispensable way of actually caring for myself. In fact, I've woken up to an email this morning from a client, a pair of clients, a couple who come and have worked with me, and they haven't been able to come to the Qigong class so far this year. They've had other things happening. It's been super busy. And they came last night for the first time in like 2 months. And just their response this morning is, wow, didn't realize how much we missed it. Didn't realize how important it was. We had been feeling really stuck and struggling, and it just shifted a whole bunch of stuff just in that, 75 minutes of practice that we did. So I love its ability to complement the nature of Bowen technique, but give you a tool for working with yourself. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experiences within that.
Well, when I started, I really feel that the Qigong added so much more dimension to me as a practitioner. It gave me such a deeper understanding of the work that I was doing, because the ancient mystics, the ancient Qigong masters, they knew, they were connected. I mean, it's the foundations of energy, of medicine, before herbs even. And for me, just for example, when I saw the Zen circle, I never understood what the Zen circle was. And so now it's like I totally understand that, we have come here on this planet with this vessel, and our spirit and our soul is here. And when we have illness, mental illness, physical illness, all it is a disconnection from the mind, body, spirit. And that we've just taken on so much from our DNA or from our life experience, and the vessel has become full. And I feel that Qigong and any form of medicine, really, be it herbs or Bowen or whatever you do, is really you are helping that person empty the vessel so that they can connect with their mind, body, spirit, so that they can be empowered to live the best life they can. And for us to do that, we need to be clear as practitioners, and we need to consistently be dedicated to clearing ourselves. So that's what I love about Qigong. And also I'm a nature lover. And for me, when we clear the vessel, we now can connect with divine consciousness or our super consciousness or the chi that is in every living thing, that dynamic healing potential that is the force of nature, that is the force of life. It is in our veins, it is in our fascia, it is everywhere. And when we clear, we connect with the abundance of that human potential, that life force energy, the Shen, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I don't know, I'll ask to get your kind of thoughts on this, but for me, we're in this evolutionary process with Bowen technique. Tom kind of started the process. I mean, and really, if we look at where Tom got influenced from, we can see those links going back into that traditional Chinese practice again and that Oriental medicine field. But kind of Tom coined Bowen to a degree in the way that we have begun to use it. And I can see that we're evolving because we've got access to information, we've got access to research and practice at a level that, it wasn't so easy when Tom was practicing and when Tom was working. So we're now evolving a process within that. The integral theory, the framework that I work with, we talk about transcending and including. We talk about looking at where the limitations of a previous stage are and taking forward those things that are valuable and useful from it, leaving behind the things that aren't. And then we move up into a new level where we're looking at things with new eyes and including new aspects that our previous level either weren't available to us or we couldn't kind of connect to. So it's great to hear about that nature of evolution and the importance of all that within your practice. And we're becoming much deeper, broader human beings. And when I interviewed Russell Sturgis, we released that a couple of weeks ago, he also spoke about this importance of, as a practitioners, being clear and understanding our own development. And I love how you've put that about clearing the vessel, that making space for the Jing, the Qi, the Shen, the three treasures, body, mind, spirit, to really be able to be clear so that what we can do, the intentionality behind it, the energy within it is much deeper and is including far more dimensions and aspects than were obvious when Tom started his work.
Yeah, and I think the more that we, on that subject of clearing as practitioners, I felt that since, I have gone through my own personal transformation that doesn't ever end, but where you go through that process of self-actualization, my results in the clinic have just, are just incredible now, and continue to be completely surprising all the time. And I think that that's why I encourage, people to, because it's not an easy path, because it's always a reflection and it's always looking at the shadow self and it's always looking to expand and be that better self. It does require commitment and vigilance to do that,
Yeah.
of learning more and doing the work, walking the talk.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. In the I think it was in 2018 we had a Bowen summit here in the UK that was just a localized one. It wasn't an online one. But one of the things I spoke about in that was that as a practitioner, if I don't have a reference for a thing, how easily can I really work with it? The better I understand myself and all the layers within me, Like if I haven't really felt that part of me, if I don't have a true internal sense of that aspect of me, then how easily am I really working with it in somebody else if it's just an abstract concept rather than something that I've got direct visceral experience with in myself? So personally, I think that the more we understand ourselves, the better we're able to serve those that we're working with.
And I think the world of healing particularly, and I can see that in Bowen, because of the regulation that's coming in for recognition, what's happened is that we've become increasingly mechanized. And that's actually where, chiropractic, osteopathy, I mean, a lot of the old practitioners are missing. I've talked to a number of them that, it's different to the old school, that heart-centered work, where now it's going to, a lot of testing. And I'm not saying that that's not necessary. I think that it's all necessary. And I feel that everyone works in a different way and everyone has different talents. So it's like, as a person doing the work of Bowen, and often they're multidisciplinary approaches, or you've studied many other things, that it should be more inclusive of the way other people want to work with their gifts and talents, rather than not everyone wants to work down the mechanistic path. And a lot of people who don't do that still get profound results. We don't want to, I believe it's not limiting and putting everybody in a box of this is how it should be done. I feel that with the knowledge that we're having, like you said, we're gaining so much more knowledge about the mind and the vagus nerve and how everything's integrated, that we can't get lost in that point of view or what the governments want us to do. And I believe that there's enough for everyone's different approaches, and we need to make sure that we have that in place to support everybody, not just one way of doing things. Like our education system that doesn't serve certain people that have other gifts and talents that are not recognized for that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we are moving into a much deeper age of integrative medicine. And I love the fact that here we are on opposite sides of the world, both kind of pushing along at the same kind of idea, which is beautiful. And I'd like to move now a little bit because, there's some fabulous things coming up. We've got the Bowen Global Summit coming up in March 2020. For me, the precursor and the entry into you and this was These Two Hands, is the documentary that yourself and Sean have been involved in making. So I'd love for you to just tell me a little bit about why did you do that? What made you kind of get into that?
Well, I'm trying to, after, studying and investing in my diploma, and then the journey of establishing a practice and the challenges of that in a conservative country town of New South Wales, where, we have a lot of farming people, and, I did a research paper for my diploma, and it was, I did a survey on how many people knew about Bowen, and I was actually shocked to find that, very few people, it was less than 10%. And I suppose it was frustration because the amount of work that it took to go out in my community to do free work, to get people educated in my community, but still to actually sustain a practice where you've got to pay, you've got to bring the people in, and you're doing something that's totally out of the box, was really challenging. And my brother, he just finished his film school, and he was visiting me in Woolleye, and I said, would you mind doing just a little YouTube clip for me? And that's how it started. And we were just having a conversation here, and I said, well, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a documentary about Bowen, so we could spread the word. And that's how the idea was born. And Sean said, well, that's, a great idea. And that's kind of how it started. And I proposed it to the organizations, and because there was a massive event happening at that time in Cairns where people were flying from all around the world, and it was at the BOTEC conference. And I said, look, it's really important to do these interviews now, because it's very expensive to be, flying around to individual people when everybody's here pulled at this one place. I proposed it, and it took a while to get that idea accepted, and then it sort of took off from there. So, the BTFA and the BAR helped kickstart the project, but it was a lot bigger than we'd ever anticipated, because we didn't just want to make film that was just interview focused, because I felt that was just going to be preaching to the converted. Who's going to sit through an interview filled with people just talking about Bowen? So we were really wanted to create something that was dynamic and really visually appealing, and also had the story. It had some drama, about the two love stories coming together. Like, what was the driver to entice people that were not Bowen therapists to watch it, to be inspired by Tom Bowen? And so that's why it was a huge project to do something like that, to get the acting scenes and actually get it to the level that was of that higher caliber that we wanted on a minimal budget. And it was really just Sean and I doing voluntary work for the last 7 years. And the summits, actually, the previous summits, Bowen and Beyond 2002, and then the Bowen Wellness Summit 2023, really developed to try and raise funds to complete the project. We set up the platform Natural Therapy Institute initially was because we had all this footage, hundreds of hours of footage that was just not utilized and just sitting there. And so we thought, we'll just create a masterclass and we can raise some funds by selling that. And then it just kind of evolved. And it has been a long journey for everyone. People had donated money, and we're very committed to make it available for free, so that it's, rather than being locked up somewhere in Netflix where it's a bit more of a rigmarole to jump on, like, I really do want it released for free so that it's translated in 150 languages, and YouTube is really accessible. But to do that, we did want to have a target of, this is our big event that we really wanted to get people on board, so that it at least covers some of the expenses for Star Max Films. I'm a Bowen therapist. It's a little bit different for me to do voluntary work compared to a film company of Sean, who's dedicated, a big portion of his life. So that was the impetus for this event, actually.
Yeah, so the intention is that with this year's Bowen Global Summit, there's a target to be achieved. And if that target's achieved, then these two hands will be made available on YouTube. So it'll be free access for everybody. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the aim. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's go into that then. Let's talk about the Global Summit. So that's the 22nd and 23rd of March, 2025. Tell us a little bit about who's on the lineup and what's included for people if they join up.
Well, we've got over 20, leaders in their field. We've got Gus Della Quira, we've got Dr. Schleip, we've got John Shakey, who's a master in anatomy and fascia. We've got yourself. We've got Desley Fawkes. We've got representatives from the Bowen Association of the Netherlands and Denmark. We also have people that are presenting on personal development and business goals, such as Alicia. And also we have Cleona, and another friend of mine who's actually the director of the Mana movement, and she's worked extensively in South America with shamans, and she's got an education about living life, and I'm really committed to the work that she's doing. So she's talking about the big picture, and everybody, hopefully we're going to get Alistair from the muscle tissue release. We've got a great lineup of presenters this year, and there's possibly even more coming. We also then, as a part of this summit, the first day is going to be sort of health, I suppose, Bowen and health focused. And the other day, which is on the 23rd, is going to be on self-development and business goals and expanding in your life kind of work. That's the second day. We were inspired to do, the theme is Ignite Your Abundance. And we were actually inspired to do that because of our own personal journey with our own lives of expansion and the struggles that we've had to expand in our own personal business, expand in this area, and also the limitations that we have as a global community to be able to invest in the resources that we need to expand. All of this kind of, also the current economic situation where right across the globe, a lot of therapists are feeling the effects of, what's happening with high, rising prices of, food and all sorts of things, that we are feeling the pinch of that as well. So this event was really born out of I feeling that the need for us to collectively connect and also to expand in our abundance mindset. And that's not just financial and resources, that's actually in all aspects of our life. I feel that 2025 is a really important year, and that's, for a lot of astrologically, for healers. And I think that coming together, there's a power in that. There's a power in people connecting. For example, I know that, when we first had Dr. Schleip, we invited him to our first event. He didn't really know that much about Bowen. And a lot of people were saying, he doesn't really understand it, and he's made these comments, and that's not great. And look, I invited him because we were so inspired by, what his contribution to, fascia and really contribution to Bowen in an indirect way. And through the conversations that we'd had through interviews and through the Q&As and him talking with John Wilkes and even the following year in 2023, and also connecting with him and conversations about, he never knew there was weights, and then in Bowen, and he was just like blown away by the potential and learning more about Bowen, that now, he was connected with Andrea and she gave him Bowen. And then, what's expanded from there is now he's doing this research project that is Bowen focused. And for me, that is the power of connecting. He's a key person that we needed to be able to progress Bowen. We know that research is very expensive, but to be able to ignite that curiosity in someone like, Dr. Schleip, and even the excitement that, after interviewing John Shaky and how excited he was to be a part of this, for me, it just shows that the dynamic nature of people getting together for a common vision. And so that's what's really inspiring me about this event, and all of us as a community supporting each other to move forward, because everyone's doing their little bit at different levels. Someone's doing their little bit by doing interesting posts on social media. Other people are doing their work in communities, doing a great job. People are writing books. I mean, everybody at their capacity is doing their work, and it's so valuable. And to me, it's not a competition. This is not a competition. We're all doing it with our gifts and talents to share this work that was a gift that we were given. And I just celebrate that. And I celebrate everybody that's out there that's actually using their healing hands and using their healing heart to make waves and make changes and help people at a time that chronic health is on the exponential rise. And the medical system is inundated. The mental health system is just off the charts. We need more healers out there. It doesn't matter really what they're doing. I think, sure, if that's your thing, great. But there's so many other wonderful modalities out there. I happen to be a Bowen lover because that's my thing. It just resonates with me. I love it. But all of us are doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is possibly one of the most important things of our time is that we are learning the value of integrative collaboration, that we can't keep on just trying to use one thing and expect to cover everything. We need to take all of these elements, all of these bits of research, all of these bits of information, people who are specializing and looking into certain areas and certain things, and then looking at the bigger relationships that are involved in those, and how one person's work and insights and research have value into somebody else's work, and how we can combine those to create a much greater vision of health and well-being. From the integral perspective, we're always talking about we have these whole parts, we have these holons. So every little bit is complete within itself, but it's partial to a greater whole. And the more we understand that, the better we do. And the easy example of that is always that whole letters create whole words, which create whole sentences, which create whole paragraphs, whole chapters, and whole books. And each individual part has a relevance into the greater whole, and how it's used and how it's combined is the thing that then makes the difference for the outcome. So, this is why from the BTPA point of view, we're really pleased to be interviewing you today, Helen, and to be supporting the work that you're doing. And, I'm really excited to be part of this summit as well, and to be getting to share some of that integral vision of health with the people who are going to be attending that. So, and again, for anybody that hasn't had a look yet, we're going to have links in the description below. It's right through to the summit and through to these two hands for people to look at. But the lineup in there is just immense. When you look through who's already on that lineup and how many resources you're going to get access to within that. And we're not even talking yet about the actual content. We're just talking about the potential of it and who those master speakers are within that. It looks beautiful. So, but just give everybody a bit of a rundown as well about what they're going to get if they sign up to view the summit.
So what they're going to get is lifetime access to the event. They're going to get 6 months access to the Bowen Global Network program, and that will be another 6 presenters and Q&As with that. So we're connecting every month, and so that is of great value. Also, we're going to create a marketing trailer that people will have access to about Bowen therapy, and they get the movie. I think that they get access to that. I think that might be lifetime access. I'm not really sure, but that's before it's released. Yeah, and that's pretty much the main thing.
Yeah. So in the list of stuff as well, there'll be a digital workbook included in there as well.
Sure.
And of course, they're going to be helping to unlock these two hands to be on public access all the time, which is also then a promotional resource that people can use as well for their own businesses. If people want to understand, I think because as a tool, like when you've got clients that they come and receive Bowen and you can talk to them a little bit about it. But the thing is, as human beings, that we think in stories, we think in metaphors and we think in different ways. So to be able to say to your clients, well, you can go and watch the movie, and that gives you a different way of just understanding what it is that's taken place in their bodies as well. So I think there's a really useful aspect to that we are contributing towards. Bowen as a household name internationally, we're investing in upscaling that so that more people can access it. And I always see this as the win-win. I always see it that, and from our point of view in the BTPA, part of what we do is that on our social media sites, whenever we see anybody promoting Bowen, and it doesn't matter what school they come from, it doesn't matter what their organization is, it doesn't matter what their language is, if we see Bowen being promoted, we promote with them, we share, because the more that we can get Bowen out there, the more people benefit from us. And there's just this beautiful circle. It's going to come back to us in that way. I mean, I've been doing Bowen for, 14 years now. I've been in professional practice 22 years, and I'm busier than I've ever been. I've got waiting lists that's a mile long, and, kind of booked way into May with some of my clinic work. And, all I can see is that the more I help everybody else, the more that lifts me up. And I feel like that's part of what is behind the work that you're doing as well, Helen. And I think it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think connecting all of us together on a platform is just really, is just magic. It's just like the energy of what everyone's doing. We're like kind of connecting with that energy and filling our cup as well, to do the best work that we can do out there in our communities.
Yeah. And for anybody that's listening, if you're not sure, just get on the site, go and have a look at who's speaking. Think about it from a CPD point of view. We've all got to do this continual professional development work, and look at how many hours of work and again, with the BTPA, you can claim that back as CPD. It all counts towards your professional work because you're listening to professionals speaking about this topic. And I think it's absolutely vital that we do that. And again, I really appreciate as well that you're pretty humble within this as well, Helen, because you haven't even mentioned about the fact that you're speaking as well in the summit. Oh. You're actually doing a talk on surviving to thriving. So give us a little synopsis about what you're going to be sharing within there as well.
I suppose I love that topic. And what I'd like to share is, firstly, is for ourselves as practitioners to be able to go from surviving to thriving, and to be able to help our clients go from surviving to thriving. And we all, my background is like obviously talking about our autonomic nervous system and how that works, and how that, it creeps up this survival mechanism because we're all geared for survival. Like over 20% of our nervous system is sympathetic based. So it's like we are geared to survive, and that mechanism. And it's like to overcome that requires really, well, I like to call it almost a consciousness, a mindfulness, an awareness of when the external environment is coming at us, or where there's pressures of work. Look, all of us, to sustain our lifestyles, the amount of clients that we have with family and giving, the amount of pressure that we're under, it's like, the frog in the hot water. The frog doesn't realize until it's boiling hot and it, fries pretty much. You don't realize sometimes, like we see it in our clients, but we don't often see it in ourselves. And so I'm kind of just going to delve into what it means to be aware and how we can do that and best serve our clients. And that is providing the space for them to reflect. What are the conversations that you first have in the clinic? Do they actually understand what you're doing, for a start? And so, because for every client that I have, I talk about what are we doing, so that it's like a journey that I'm taking them on, rather than because I don't know how many Bowen therapists I went to, nobody actually ever talked about the journey of what am I doing here? It's like I'm setting the scene for them, and they're taking it all in. And so in that way, then we can have the conversation is, how are things changing for you? And what might you need to put in place? What might be going on as that your pattern that actually is creating this stress or whatever? And I go back to that, the Qigong principle is when we can clear, and when we can consistently clear and know how to do that with practices, connecting with nature, having those conversations, connecting with our loved ones, all the things that fill our cup, whether it's art or whatever, that is a part of what do I actually need to thrive? Have I spent the time to actually connect with what I need? Because sometimes those old patterns from childhood, we're busy working, or we're striving for something, or we're busy fixing things, or we're the peacemaker, or whatever we do, and we're not actually putting in place, what do I actually need to thrive? Am I putting enough time into connecting in my community, or having some space to do my art that I always wanted to do, or am I just getting caught up in the survival? So that's really a very passionate topic of mine, because I feel that is so important to be able to deliver that to our clients, because at the end of the day, we know that what is going on in their body is actually what's going on in the subconscious mind and what's going on in their world. And unless we help them become aware of that, we're just doing another symptom-based Band-Aid treatment. Even though it's a complementary treatment, it's still a Band-Aid treatment, because we're not actually looking at what we can, yes, recorrect the autonomic nervous system for that period while the Bowen's lasting. And sure, it's lasting a lot longer than a lot of therapies. But the thing is that what more can we give them? You know, what more can we set the scene for them to even work deeper? And most importantly, it's very important for us to do that work and be aware and move forward in that area. So that's kind of, it opens us up to the abundance. As I said, when you're in survival mode, you can't have an open heart. You can't connect to your friends. You're going to be in autopilot. Your brain's just functioning in autopilot. Your whole body's under stress. So there's no capacity for creativity when you are in survival mode, and you can't be present for others in survival mode. You know, you may think you are. So it's about how are we regulating ourselves and how are we opening ourselves up to full potential. And when we can go out of survival mode, we have access to infinite potential, because our brain is switched on. The energy is coming beyond the base chakra to the higher plane, So that's what I'm really passionate about, and I'll be delivering on that subject.
Wow. See, just to get that alone is worth it. And again, for me, it's such a crucial aspect of the work that we're really doing. A long time ago, I was given the phrase, healing is not an event, it's a process. So we need to make sure that we're not thinking that once in, like one session, one practitioner, one thing is going to be the thing that solves the problem that we've built a lifetime around, and that we need to have, and again, sometimes it can be really simple and easy. It depends what the process is, but we need to have a way of escalating through that, so that if a simple intervention isn't adequate, that we have space to go somewhere else, that we can take people deeper, that we can explore a wider perspective, that we've got the tools for the inquiry, that we can feel into things in a different way. I mean, even our language skills, our ability to be able to ask questions, our knowledge of the possible directions these situations, these problems could be moving in, I think is also important to have that understanding of. And I know it's something that we can only build over time as well. You can't get all this in your foundation training. You can sow all the seeds, but it's an experience thing, but we have this unprecedented access to great knowledge, great teachers, great philosophy. And, I think so much of that is represented in the lineup that we have for the Bowen Global Summit this year. It's a monster. It's beautiful. There's so much amazing stuff in there. And even for anybody listening as well who's a Bowen practitioner, when you think about marketing your business and the challenge that comes to be able to really speak to all the dimensions that are possible within that, just the very fact that as part of what you're going to get for this, you're going to get a promotional edit of the film that you can use for yourself to reach out to clients, to help with what you're doing. It's helping to give you the language and the tools to be able to connect and communicate to a much wider audience. And for me, the cost of the summit is given all that you've got in there, it is just incredible. So, personally, I'm grateful that someone is doing this work, that someone is really bringing all these threads together and talking about them in Bowen. I'm grateful to be part of it as well, because I really appreciate the recognition of the contribution that I have within that as well. So, I'm really touched to be part of that process. And it's, for me, beautiful to be with all of those other speakers who are all contributing towards improving the world, and all held by you, and all kind of encouraged and pushed by you and Sean. So it's just incredible. So, I'm really excited about that. Thanks, Helen.
And thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to speak today. Thank you for all the work that you've been doing, touching so many lives as well. I know that we often unseen working in our little clinics, and we're putting a lot into that day, and sometimes we go out of there, and I'm sure you've got a very full clinic, and often you don't get acknowledged for the work that we do. I'd like you to thank you for your 20-something years of dedicating to people and their own personal transformations, and the opportunity to come on the show and share what we're doing, spreading the love, really.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? If we're going to make the world better, we've got to spread the love. We've got to keep on putting our hearts out there and giving that opportunity for thriving and for joy and for life to be something other than a struggle. So that's amazing. Thank you, Helen.
Yeah,
So for people to be able to go and find the summit, where should they go? What's the place they're heading towards?
If they just Google the Natural Therapy Institute or the Bowen Global Summit.com, it'll just come up straight away.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that there are links for that in the description below. So make sure you check those out as well. And thank you, everybody who's been listening today, for your time and attention. It's really appreciated as well. Don't ever think of it as a small thing that you showed up, you listened, you took on board some of what we were shared. Please hit that like button, share that event out there. Let's help make this even bigger so that as we go forward, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we get all this beautiful kind of Bowen love moving around the world. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Helen. Really appreciated it. And this has all been done with the support of the BTPA, the Bowen Therapy Professional Association here in the UK. And we will look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.